Welcome to the Side Hustle to Small Business podcast powered by Hiscox. I'm your host, Sanjay Parekh. Throughout my career, I've had side hustles, some of which have turned into real businesses. But first and foremost, I'm a serial technology entrepreneur. In the creator space, we hear plenty of advice on how to hustle harder and why you can sleep when you're dead. On this show, we ask new questions in hopes of getting new answers. Questions like, how can small businesses work smarter? How do you achieve balance between work and family? How can we redefine success in our businesses so that we don't burn out after year 3? Every week, I sit down with business founders at various stages of their side hustle to small business journey. These entrepreneurs are pushing the envelope while keeping their values. Keep listening for conversation, context, and camaraderie. Today's guest is Chris Brady, the founder of Timber Pizza Company. Timber Pizza started by selling pizzas out of the back of a '67 Chevy and now has multiple locations and food trucks along the East Coast. Today, we're focusing on Timber's franchising aspects. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Sanjay. Pleasure to be here.
So I'm excited to talk to you, not because of the franchising part. Honestly, it's because of the pizza part, because I love pizza. And hopefully I might get some cooking tips from you here in a minute. But before we get into all of that, give us a little bit about your background and what got you to where you are today.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks again for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. The journey of Timber has been a fun ride over the last 12 years, but we'll, start a bit before that. Calling you here today from Annapolis, Maryland, where I'm from. Always been, a native of the DMV, if you will. After college, moved to DC, was in the tech startup world at a few companies, including Living Social, EverFi, and Wedding Wire. So was in the tech world, selling some different technologies and making some friends and having a great time in my early 20s. But early on there, I knew that wasn't going to be super long for me, whether it was the commute or, selling and cold calling things that I wasn't super passionate about. I had to find a way out. So fast forward a little bit, my buddy Andrew Dana and I came across the mobile wood-fired pizza situation and knew that was for us the minute that kind of that light bulb went off. 67 baby blue Chevy, pizza oven, and a lot of hustle in 4 months from idea to selling pizza on the street of DC back in 2014 was exactly how we started this. So it's kind of the quick background on me and how Timber came to be, but certainly a lot more to unpack as we dive deeper into it.
Yeah, I love that origin story. By the way, DMV for our listeners is DC, Maryland, and Virginia, right?
Most definitely, yeah. As commonly known around here, but maybe for a lot of people, that's where you go to get your driver's license. So it's a lot more boring.
Well, why does Delaware get left out of that? Is it Delaware's right there with you too? Why is it not Delaware, Maryland?
So a lot of us, me and the guys, especially the beach-loving folks, we kind of lobby to slide Delaware in there, especially as the summertime rolls around. So sometimes it's DMD and Dewey Beach gets a little love when it comes to that.
I was going to say, just expand a little bit, grow the region or something.
Happy to add that.
Okay, so is this the first time that you've done anything entrepreneurial, or was there entrepreneurial stuff when you were a kid? Any entrepreneurs in the family, anything like that?
Yeah, great question. So my uncle was a very successful entrepreneur. It was a totally different ballgame. He was in the orthotics business. So a podiatrist, worked with a ton of professional sports teams and the VAs on the eastern shore of Maryland, not too far from old Delaware down there near the beaches. And Uncle Jack, definitely the entrepreneurial spirit was alive and well with him. He showed me a lot, taught me a lot, definitely blazed his own trail and was a man who was not necessarily controlled by anyone else. And I like that. So, he might not get as much credit as he deserves on my journey. But, for me, being the boss, being able to help others and create opportunities for people was really, something that I admired about him and something that I took notes on as a young man, spending time fishing and hanging out with him down in Ocean City, Maryland.
Yeah, love that. Okay, let's start to talk about starting the business. So over 4 months, you picked up this 67 baby blue Chevy, the wood fire oven, the whole thing, kind of figured it all out. Was there anything that made you nervous in starting down this path? I mean, before this, you had, I'm assuming just regular W-2 jobs. You were working for these tech startups and whatever, but somebody was paying your salary, and now you're jumping into this thing where it's like, you don't sell a pizza, you're not making money.
Yeah, no, it was the real deal. There were some nerves. I think at that time, the lack of true responsibility, no mortgage, no wife, no kids. I had enough fire in the belly to know that I could just go after it. And I remember the moment just saying to myself, hey, like the worst thing that happens is you get another job. Maybe you move home and crash and burn out and have to restart. But at that time, I'm 25 years old. I said, let's go. I knew I had enough to last 5 or 6 months in DC, which wasn't easy going salary list in DC at any point in time. But just put my head down and went for it. And me and my buddy Andrew weren't going to be stopped. So nervous, yes, but way more brazen and excited, and glad we didn't look back.
Yeah. Okay, I got to ask you. So, first pizza sold out of the back of that truck. Do you remember it? What was it like? How did it happen?
Yeah, sure thing. It wasn't easy. Battled a lot of traffic to get out to Rockville, Maryland on that late May evening. It definitely was to a family member. It may or may not have been to my dad, and that picture may or may not be in the restaurant below me. And I think we skipped him on the pepperonis pretty good. So we sold about 45 pizzas that evening. We were at the Columbia Heights Farmers Market in DC that Saturday and sold about 60. Instead, he creeped up from there. We learned how to get to 100, and then, you know, volume became keeping up and dealing with the lines and balancing it all. Soon became our new skill. But yeah, that first pizza sold and that first dollar made, you never forget those memories.
Yeah. So that's actually a very interesting kind of skill to have as well, like dealing with lines and things like that. How long did it take you to get to that point where you had lines that you had to deal with? Was it right away, or was it, did it take a couple of times at the farmer's market? And did you do anything specifically to make sure people, because the problem always with those lines is people leave those lines because they don't want to wait, right? And you're losing that revenue. So how did you do anything to figure out how to deal with all that?
Yeah, I think managing expectations and just overdoing it on the customer service was always our mantra. Like we knew we weren't always going to make an amazing pizza. We were figuring that out as we went. We knew we were going to have to deal with long lines because we got some good press right out of the gate. When you're driving a 1967 baby blue Chevy truck, listening to old school hip hop and dressing like you're, fresh out of the high school gymnasium, you're going to attract some attention. So we definitely learned how to manage expectations and say, hey, my bad, or, it's going to be a little while. Let me kick you a pizza on the house. So just trying really hard to give people a great experience and being super apologetic if, their first experience especially wasn't the best. We learned that out of the gate. Those lines did come fast, I will say. So we had the good problems, and just managing how to deal with those was an early business lesson that, pays in spades over time.
Yeah. So a huge focus on customer service, which I think is kind of the key, especially in retail businesses like this. Is there anything, like, thinking back, that, man, that was just a disastrous customer service experience that just stands out to you still to this day, probably many years later? What did you learn from that experience? How would you deal with it now versus how you dealt with it back then?
Yeah, I think, those times where you had a flat tire, or those times where the weather was so bad and it just took forever to set up, and you were kind of having that line and anticipation as you were opening up, and out of the gates, you were just, drinking through a fire hose, if you will. Those were always tricky. So, like, being extra early, being super over prepared, always preparing for something to happen, which I wouldn't say we didn't do, but at the end of the day, being exceptionally prepared, and making sure that you're way ahead and playing into all the dicey situations that can arise, is exactly where our heads would be. So I would have just taken it further. Not to say we didn't do a good job at that, but you can always do better.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's start diving in on the franchising aspect. So how many years of this was it just the two of you, or the team there, before you decided to go start franchising?
Sure. So around 2019 and into the COVID times, we were, facing a little bit of a turning point and kind of looking to bring in new energy, bring in some, investment and take the company into the next level. So, fast forward a little bit from there into 2021, we met my now business partners, Fred Freed and Luke Watson, who came in with some investors in the intention of franchising, really to, give Timber the juice and create our second iteration, if you will. So we spent the majority of 2022 laying the infrastructure and, going through the franchising process, which is certainly arduous, and tightening up operations. Then into 2023, beginning to sell in earnest and, pitch the Timber dream to others. And now, fast forward to where we are today. That's, really how it all kicked off.
So, okay, let's talk about that 2022 timeframe. Like before you started franchising, how many stores did you have at that point? How many locations were you dealing with?
Sure. So we were just at 2 locations, our main original brick and mortar in DC, and 2 trucks out of DC. So it was our Petworth location is the neighborhood in DC where we started it all. And then 2 of the mobile wood fire catering wagons that go around and do the catering and the farmers market's exactly how it all started. And then we have a food hall location in Arlington, Virginia as well. So we were just 2 and 2 way back in 2022. Did not try to do that. But yeah, had, pretty modest setup, if you will, when we kicked off the franchising situation, but we were confident based on, how well our restaurant does and the brand.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. What does that mean? So when you started out like that first year, how much revenue were you able to generate? And then how much before you started franchising to know like, okay, yeah, this is going to work for other people as well?
Yeah. So that, our DC location, the flagship brick and mortar in DC does around 2 million a year out of 1,000 square feet. So, when you say that, people's eyebrows kind of raise. It's certainly a strong, powerful story. It's been consistent. Certainly it took some years to mature to get to that level. But, those types of numbers definitely, pop off on the page when you start talking about franchising. So we felt great about that. But it's so much more than just the revenue for us. It's the brand, the way that Timber makes you feel, our commitment to being, community focused and really leading with our core values. The feeling of Timber is, even much more powerful than our product itself, in our opinion. So kind of going back to that early commitment to customer service and just making sure that you're doing right by people, that's, really stuck with us. And it's been like a key piece of our franchising journey.
Yeah. What was revenue like that first year when you were still in the truck, the Chevy and getting that done?
Sure. So we launched at the end of May. So we got just over 7 months and we made 90 grand then. So it certainly wasn't 90 in revenue. So certainly, we were like, okay, we have something going on here. And we put our daggone heads down and booked out way in advance for the next year and started getting some good play on catering and, ticking up from there. But we, were very confident in the reviews we were getting, the press we were getting, and kind of the following we were getting and the buzz that was building, that once we got a brick and mortar together, we were going to be very successful.
Yeah. How long did it take you from starting out at that point? You kind of mentioned this, to get really dialed in to your recipes and everything else to be like, okay, this is it. Now we're good. We don't need to keep monkeying with this. Yeah.
So we brought on, who ended up being an executive chef and partner of ours, Chef Danny, in 2015. She came in classically trained from the Culinary Institute of America, fine dining background, candidly walked in and said, what are you guys doing with these recipes? We need this on paper. The yellow scoop is not an amount. Kind of helped Andrew and I, put on our chef hats a little bit and wrangled in the cowboys, if you will. That really stabilized things. We had the basis of a great recipe. We were serving great food, but we needed, that stabilization to make sure that, it was sustainable at the end of the day. So really kind of year 2, when Chef Danny entered the picture, we needed that, to say the least. And then, the stabilization underneath her and the team that she built out on the culinary side, really put us on a good path to take it to the next level.
You didn't ask? I mean, come on, at the Culinary Institute, you don't have a yellow scoop? I mean, like, this is standard.
We love the yellow scoop. It was just dicey on those days where we couldn't find it. We knew we were in trouble.
Oh man, you can never lose the yellow scoop. Always got to have that handy.
Nah, I wonder where it is today.
It should have a wall of fame, right there for the yellow scoop.
Absolutely.
Well, let's talk about kind of now you've been going through the franchise kind of process for a while. You've got some franchisees. Have you learned anything through that process and understanding who an ideal franchisee is? When does it make sense? When does it not make sense in terms of you and the brand? Because it sounds like there's a lot of importance on community and engagement and those types of things. And I can imagine some people, especially when you pop off that number, right? 2 million out of 1,000 square feet, they're going to be like, I'm in for the money. But maybe that's not the ideal partner for you.
Yeah, 100%. It's not an exact science for the type of person that we're looking for. There's a lot of fabric, if you will. The character and, the aspect of having the reverence for the community that they want to bring timber to, that's really first and foremost. So, of the 5 groups that we have, we feel amazing about the mix of people that we have. We also have, great teams within each group. It's not necessarily a franchise brand where it's like, exactly, I'm going to buy 5 of these and hire somebody to set it up and, it's going to print money and send me checks to the islands. That's not exactly how this goes. We want people that are in it. We want people that are not necessarily hands-on operationally and in the place making pizza every day, but we want someone who wants to be a part of running the business, work collaboratively with us and the community and really, have that alignment. I think that's the most important word for us. Alignment on how we want to grow this, alignment on what Timber Pizza looks like in their own respective neighborhoods, and just alignment on, the type of brand and company we're trying to build. So we feel very blessed that thus far we've been able to attract that. And as we continue to expand our reach and search for new partners and emerging markets for us, we feel great about, the conversations that we're having.
Yeah. Do you worry at all about, 'cause, we see this with a lot of businesses that decide to go to the franchise route, and as they get bigger and bigger, that some of that gets watered down. Whereas there's other businesses that decide not to do the franchise route because they want to control all of it, and they're able to maintain that culture or that kind of that mission, that message, whatever it is, because they have control over every single location versus the franchises that they don't necessarily. Do you worry about that? Do you think about that? How are you going to manage that over time?
100%. Scaling culture is something that definitely keeps us up at night. At the end of the day, it's the people you're working with, ensuring that they are, the type of business owner and community member, if you will, that are going to hire right, treat their people right, deal with customer service issues right, manage the social media accounts right. It's a lot. It's definitely nerve-wracking. It can take one, as we know, especially in today's climate, one slip up or, outlandish comment from somebody to stain an entire brand. So that makes us be, extremely reverent and careful about who we're working with, the types of places that we're entering, and really just ensuring that, everybody from franchisee down, if you will, amongst their team, their operators, managers that they're hiring, through bartenders and dishwashers and everyone in between, that, we're working with good people that are, really exemplifying the timber values every day, because it definitely has cost me some sleep.
I can imagine, and there's probably going to be more sleep lost in the future as you continue to grow. Hopefully not. Hopefully lost sleep in a good way, because it's just so much work to do, and things are going gangbusters. But let's talk about how you're thinking about this, and I think this will be informative and educational to those that are listening that are thinking about doing something like this as well. Is that geographically, how are you thinking about expansion? Is it going to be like concentric circles from where you are right now? Or are you thinking maybe far-flung places are okay? And how do you manage all of that depending on how far away these places get from the core that you're in right now?
Yeah, we're really focused on the former and the concentric circles, remaining in the mid-Atlantic and marching down to the Southeast, where either we can jump in our car and come see you within 3 or 4 hours, or get on a 2 to 3 hour flight max is exactly where our head's at. The places where we have expanded, from DC, Maryland, Virginia, into North Carolina and South Carolina. Beyond that, looking at Georgia, your state, as well as Tennessee, and really, really honing in on that Southeast, as well as, continuing to wave our flag in the Mid-Atlantic is exactly where we're at. Beyond that in time, certainly, but we want to, for a lot of reasons, mainly being support and supply chain, stay where we are, continue to penetrate the Mid-Atlantic and the Southeast, and be very intentional about that. Every article about us, calls that out, and that's exactly what we're committed to over the next couple of years. And then from there, steady as it goes, if you will.
Yeah. Do you worry? I guess it's like an alternate question here. Do you worry about not growing fast enough and then opening up opportunities for competitors to get into those slots, and then it's harder for you to compete? And then alternate, do you worry about growing too fast and then not being able to manage it all? Like where do you land in all of that?
Yeah, personally, and I think, Luke, my business partner, will tell you the same thing. I think worrying about growing too fast is more where we're at, and worrying more so about ourselves beyond competition and others is definitely where we spend our time. There's so much within our system that we strive to improve and continue to sharpen the tools on, so that once we do end up hitting our stride and start to go from 9 to 15 to 20 and beyond in terms of unit count, we're dialed in, and really, the location not becomes less of a concern, but more so we've, dialed in our support, know exactly the cadence of visits, the cadence of correspondence, and really kind of have our franchisee support system on a little bit more of a, consistent cycle, if you will, so that, location becomes a little bit more agnostic, and you just know, the touches, the right systems to, come in, check, make sure everything's going well, are a little bit more in place. And, we're still refining that. As we're, sitting here talking early 2026, we've opened 6 franchises since, fall of 2024. So that's a lot to kick off and come out of the gate. So really being intentional about these next few, and, taking it from there is exactly where our heads are at.
Yeah. Hey, so as an entrepreneur, has doing this franchise kind of model, has there been anything that unexpectedly has surprised you, either in a good or bad way, that you've kind of learned through this process?
I think franchising is just incredible. And there's so much more to it than the average American consumer realizes, right? So like pre-franchising, reverse back 5 years ago, even as a, just kind of a mom and pop piece of business guy, franchising, you think McDonald's, you think Subway, you think Fast Signs or some other businesses. The average American consumer probably spends, 50 to 60% of their household dollars at franchise businesses. And the average American consumer probably doesn't realize that. They're small business owners, within communities that, have the systems and kind of playbook into entrepreneurship. Multi-unit franchisee owners, you can have 2, you can have 200. There's different ways that folks are in this business. And then I think the vast majority or variety of brands, if you will, in the service-based industry, especially, franchising has been super interesting to become a part of the community. It's a very supportive group. Folks are super willing to share, very open and honest about the challenges. And you can learn a ton from folks well beyond the pizza industry and franchising. So it's just been kind of eye-opening, if you will, to put a bow on it, to enter franchising and learn so much about the industry at large. And I've really embraced it. It's been fun.
Yeah. Okay. You're still kind of in the early innings then of kind of this franchise model. What do you kind of see going forward, like 5 years, 10 years from now? What does Timber look like at that point? And how is it different than it is right now?
Yeah, for us, marching on and consistent unit count with intentional growth is exactly where our heads are at. I think 5 years from now we'll have fleed the Mid-Atlantic and the Southeast, and be expanding west and north. Being in DC, we're kind of right in the middle on the East Coast, and certainly being reverent of the pizza giants to the north of us is definitely something that we don't take lightly, but we think timber belongs everywhere. If you're in a neighborhood and you enjoy good times and amazing pizza and great experiences, we think that a timber should be near you. So, we certainly expand beyond where we're focusing on now over the years to come. But just, continuing to improve, do it the right way, and be very intentional about who and where.
Yeah. Are you concerned? So mentioning that, are you concerned about when timber does hit that one mega capital to the north and maybe in the Midwest where they believe that their pizza is the best? And it's different. It's not necessarily the best. I like all kinds of pizza. Do you have concerns about when that's going to happen and how that's going to take off there?
If we're working with the right people and it's in the right place, I think people will be open minded. And I think on our best days when we're throwing our fastball, if you will, we can go toe to toe with anybody. I've had incredible pizza all across the country and all across the world. I definitely have a top 2 or 3 if we want to tap into that at all. And some certain styles are definitely towards the top, while some others maybe we won't highlight here. But no, I think we can do well anywhere. And, for us, I think the neighborhood aspect is huge. But also, we're very reverent of the places that have been around for years. We're very much not trying to go anywhere and say, hey, like we're the new guy in town. Everybody should come here and you should ditch the place you've been going for 40 years. Like that's never who we are. I think the thing about Andrew and I, when we started up, like the place that he had gone his whole life ended up being my favorite place. That's where we had long lunches and spent a ton of time eating slices and talking about what we wanted to do. So like, that's what pizza and community are to a lot of people. When you go into the old school places from many years past and see the little league teams on the wall and things of that nature, that's what it's all about. And that's who we've become too. So we don't take that lightly whatsoever.
Yeah. Okay. Since you mentioned it, I got to ask, okay, on an average day, Chris, how many slices of pizza do you eat?
Well, if you spread out the day throughout the week, I suppose you could get me close to a slice per day, because I probably eat about a timber pizza a week on average, which isn't too crazy. We're 12-inch pies, so it can definitely be personal when you're talking about dinner. We're on a little bit of a push right now. I won't call it a New Year's push, but I'll call it a new dad's push. I don't want to, not trying to blow up as a first-time father. So I'd say my slice count's down just a little bit, but we still make sure that, typically on Friday nights, the wife and I are grabbing some timber pizza. So you can put me down for almost a slice per day, since I'll knock back about 5 slices in a sitting.
So it's okay. So it's one day a week. You're eating pizza, timber pizza, and 5 slices. Okay. So the alternate to that, especially being a new dad and being an entrepreneur, do you have an exercise routine? How do you make time for that? How do you deal with it? Like, how do you work it all in with everything else going on?
Yeah, super important. If I'm not in the gym or getting steps or trying to improve the physical, the mental will shortly get a lot duller. So right now, the morning workouts are out. I'm spending time with the little man, letting the wife catch up on sleep at the moment. But the midday, lift heavy weights, incline walk afterwards, and get a steam in if we had time is where we're at. So about 3 times a week, mix in a little jog on the weekends to knock off some cobwebs. But we're in a good spot, feeling good. The routine has returned after a few weeks of, those early couple weeks. There's no routine when you got a little person entering your life. It's all out the door.
Absolutely. They have their own schedule and you have to meld to that.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Last couple of questions for you, Chris. Thinking back now at kind of this entire journey, and there's obviously still more to come, but if you could go back in time and do something differently based on what you know now and what you've learned now, what is that thing and why?
I think I would seek out someone in the franchising community who had been there before in year one, and really, whether it was a mentorship or bringing them on as a consultant. So we brought on Matt Friedman to our team, who was the founder of Wing Zone. He's been with us, over the past year, and really, someone that's been in those trenches and made those mistakes before to help, give you that advice and guidance and, really help on the growth and development side. That's been invaluable to us. So, for me, learning from those that have been there before you and, collecting advice, I always try to, emulate and, just really learn from people that I respect, people that are smarter than me that have been in the situations before. So just doing that earlier definitely would have been, advantageous to our growth, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay, Chris, last question for you. If you were talking to somebody that's thinking about doing like you did, maybe not necessarily pizza business, but taking the leap and launching a side hustle or taking that side hustle into a full-time business, what advice would you give to them?
Look yourself in the mirror and just make sure that you are at the right point in your life to make that jump. For launching Timber, no mortgage, no wife, no kids. The downside was pretty low, as I calculated at that point. It's not for everybody, but if you have a great plan, have some mentorship and some guidance, and have some capital behind it, or at least the safety net, so that if your idea goes wrong, that it doesn't adversely affect the life that you're hoping to live or currently living, then absolutely, it can be an amazing experience. And entrepreneurship, definitely not for everybody, but extremely enriching and very, very rewarding. Especially being able to create opportunities for others. I think that's been the thing through franchising that's really humbled me and made me feel extremely blessed over the last few years, is helping others enter entrepreneurship and create an incredible opportunity for themselves. That's big time motivation for me to continue on.
I love it. I love it. Chris, where can our listeners find and connect with you online?
So I'm on LinkedIn. That's a good spot to find me. Never was a big LinkedIn guy after I left the corporate or startup world, if you will. But we're back on there. That's a good place to find me, writing a little bit about our growth and telling everybody what we have going on at Timber. So check me out on LinkedIn. And if I don't respond to the messages, I'll get around to it. Just not back in the groove of the corporate social networks quite yet, but we're getting there.
I love it. Chris, thanks so much for being on today.
Absolutely. Greatly enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Side Hustle to Small Business podcast powered by Hiscox. To learn more about how Hiscox can help protect your small business through intelligent insurance solutions, visit hiscox.com. That's HISCOX.com. And if you have a story you want to hear on this podcast, please visit hiscox.com/share your story. I'm your host, Sanjay Parikh. You can find out more about me at my website, sanjayparikh.com.